Will Trump testify? I'm Michael Smerconish in Philadelphia. Opening statements come Monday morning in the first ever criminal prosecution of an American president. Donald Trump has said multiple times that he will take the stand. A week ago Friday at Mar-a-Lago, he was asked by reporters whether he would testify.
I'm testifying. I tell the truth. I mean, all I can do is tell the truth. And the truth is that there's no case. They have no case.
He repeated that plan yesterday outside the New York City courthouse where he's being tried. Of course, just because he says he will testify doesn't make it so. He's not required to testify. In his civil fraud trial last year, he said the same thing before he was scheduled to take the stand for a second time, only to cancel the day before. Yesterday, at his so-called Sandoval hearing, Trump was put on notice of the prosecution's desire to cross-examine him if he does testify on several specific matters, including the verdict in his civil fraud case where he was found to have inflated his assets, the E. Jean Carroll cases which resulted in verdicts for sexual assault and defamation, and a suit he filed against Hillary Clinton which was thrown out. Judge Juan Merchan will rule on the admissibility of that subject matter on Monday. The judge's ruling might cause Trump to reconsider his stated desire to testify. But depending on how the evidence comes in, Trump might have no choice but to testify. And here's why. Trump faces 34 counts of falsifying business records in connection with a hush money payment to a former adult film actress, Stormy Daniels. Jurors will have to determine whether the payment was a violation of state and federal election law, meaning that Trump paid the money for the purpose of silencing Daniels with an eye toward his re-election, or, as Trump would like to argue, that it was made to spare his family from embarrassing disclosures regardless of the election. The Wall Street Journal recently summarized the facts as follows. Ms. Daniels has said that in 2006, she and Mr. Trump had one intimate encounter. A decade later, as the 2016 election neared, Mr. Trump's fixer, Michael Cohen, paid Ms. Daniels $130,000 to keep quiet. A non-disclosure agreement isn't illegal. Mr. Bragg's complaint is about the paperwork. Mr. Cohen was reimbursed through 2017 via a monthly retainer disguised as a payment for legal services, the DA said. He padded his indictment by separately charging each invoice, check, and ledger entry to get 34 counts. Falsifying business records in New York can be a misdemeanor, but that statute of limitations had expired. So DA Alvin Bragg charged Trump with felonies which require a showing of intent to commit another crime. Bragg was only able to do that because COVID had caused an extension of the applicable statute of limitations for a year, during which time Trump was charged. Remember, assessing the alley-oop that all of this required is presumably why the feds passed on pressing this case themselves. So what's the second crime? Election interference. The claim that the payment was an undisclosed campaign contribution in excess of federal limits. Trump's defense? Probably that the payment wasn't campaign-related, but rather was solely intended to protect his family and reputation, notwithstanding the election. Prosecutors will note the timing, so close to the election. Trump's response, that's when Stormy Daniels sought payment. Here's the challenge for the Trump defense: how to get their version into evidence. There's one witness who is uniquely qualified to explain the motivation behind the payment: Donald Trump. But his taking the stand carries enormous risk. When he testified in the case where he was found to have inflated his net worth, the New York Times made this observation. In Justice Engoron's courtroom, Mr. Trump delivered a rally-made rant from the witness stand, marking the climax of a months-long proceeding that was alternately stultifying and scintillating. The former president attacked one of Ms. James' lawyers, saying, "You and about every other Democrat district attorney, AG, and U.S. attorney were coming after me from 15 different sides, all Democrats, all Trump haters." If Trump doesn't take the stand, he has limited means of getting his side into evidence. One alternative is through another witness. Michael Cohen is a possibility. But the question would need to be very simply and yet skillfully asked. Something like, Mr. Cohen, you can understand how Mr. Trump may not have wanted his family to know the reason for this payment, right? If Cohen agrees, that provides a sufficient basis for Trump's lawyer to argue that's why the true purpose of the payment was hidden, and that would spare Trump from testifying and facing a withering cross-examination. I wonder if Michael Cohen is prepared to answer that question, and how so, plus Stormy Daniels. If Trump's lawyers can get Cohen or another witness to acknowledge that Trump sought to spare his family, it would set the stage for a closing argument asserting Trump's key defense without him having to testify. But if nobody else says it, Trump may have no choice but to testify. No matter what Trump said in advance of the trial, whether he testifies will probably be a game-time decision.